Good evening, chess friends. Welcome, perhaps, to Friday Night Fights. See if we're live here on Twitch and YouTube and all that. Yeah, looks like it. So the tournaments will be starting in 18 or 19 minutes, and I'm going to go spend a few more minutes helping the kids towards bed before I truly join my own show. So, yeah, for anyone looking for the events, you can find them. You can find them here. It's Chess Dojo Club. Put the link in both chats. And yeah, I'll be back very soon. Muted. Good call, String Bean. Mike's been muted this whole time. Wow. I've just been talking to myself for 10 minutes here. Oh, Twitch is so great. I love the streaming. Hey, String Bean. Thanks for that. Moscow, what I wanted to tell you was that music that you heard earlier that you said made you question or worry about my state of mind. That music was all written by a dojoer. That was all from an album from somebody from Chess Dojo. I think it's very good. Okay, other announcement, folks. The games are starting in a minute, and the over 1600 section is lacking a player, right? So over 1600, they need another player for the tournament actually to hold or exist. Cross Online was sitting here fumbling with the earphones the whole time. Now you're worried about the dojo. It's just one person, Moscow. Yeah, under 1600 is looking very good. Games are starting in about 30 seconds, I believe. Of course, people can always join later and play a game whenever it suits you. But given how sick I am, the commentary is not going to last very long today. So if you want to have your game commented, you'll have to play pretty soon. If you want to watch other people's games commented and then play your own game later, that can work as well. All right, so games are going to kick off here. Let me open up these games. We've got Kuru 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 versus Where is the Bread? And we've got Small Beak versus MD Knight. And then thank you, Clock Goblin. No current events. I need to open up the games from the under 1600 group somehow. All right, I'm gonna have to go this way here. Copy the link, come over here, pop it in there. I don't know, Moscow. What would be a remix for Welcome to the Dojo? Like, what would... I'm not really too clear on what a remix would be, maybe. Advanced Karo has been very popular in these tournaments. And Fougry versus Mushin. All right, so I've got all the games open for the moment. I know there's an odd person out who didn't get a game. Don't worry, Max Bierman, you'll probably get a game soon enough. Boondock Striker. Oh no, it's Boondock Striker who hasn't yet had a game. So it's Boondock Striker who has to hang around for a bit. And you'll get the next available game, I think. Locked out of your Twitch account. Jeez. Disaster upon disaster, huh? Okay, so what's happening here? White went for knight b5, threatening c7. Threatening c7 and walked straight into black's plan of e5, blocking the bishop out. So f6 prepares the move e5. And if white looked carefully, like, why did black play f6? What are they planning to do? They could have avoided walking straight into this, right? Boom. Right in the bishop's face. Boom, the knight gets kicked as well. Everybody's getting kicked. Yeah. So Falgary gets a good starting position for this game. Moscow, I will publish some new chess raps, even if they sound terrible, in the future. I just am not clear what a remix would be. Falgary's so busy overprotecting e5 that I wonder if d5 is defended. Oh! Mushin's wondering the same thing. And wonders about it via capturing it. Yeah, I saw Harry Mack do some kind of like a chess history rap, didn't he? Quite good. Quite good. The best chess rap is perhaps this one. You can look it up. Certainly one of the better ones. A little change of the lyrics. Okay, I suppose I could do that. Bishop e4 chasing the knight. But no problem, the knight will just move, right? No problem. No problem, I'll move if you want. Defending the knight's another option, but you have to be careful. If you defend it this way, you hang something in the other direction. People sometimes forget what their pieces are doing where they are and just think about what they're doing where they bring them to. This is a different option for defending the knight. But one thing it does allow is trades, check. No convenient ways to block, right? So the king comes up and the queen recaptures this pawn, and it's probably not the best option for white either. So the white knight retreated. I think that was the best move, coming as it does with a threat against this bishop. Black attacks in 5 seconds here on c2. Oh, yeah. Well, that's what happens when you play a move in 5 seconds, I suppose. Yeah, that's one of the two best raps, as far as I know, that I've heard with chess as the topic. You want to ask me an opening theory question, Moscow? You can ask. I might not know the answer, but I'm perfectly happy to try. So black was just a little bit not careful enough with their pieces. Went for the same bishop and knight attack on c2 that white had gone for earlier in the game. And took down a piece. Maybe we'll switch to another game. Okay, so this one here, knight e2. They're playing a Karo Khan. White's threatening to take on h7, so black's got to play a move to deal with that, I think. G6, h6, and h5 are three moves I would consider. I don't really see any other option. I don't think it's possible here to just sacrifice the pawn. Maybe king h8 is another move, where if they take the pawn, you'd have g6 trapping the bishop. I vaguely know it, Moscow. Let me see. I don't know if I can reconstruct how to get to it. I mean, I've seen it happen a bunch of times. Let's see. I think white doesn't trade, so let's assume white castles. Is it something like this? Maybe here, 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 here. Oh, I think I guessed it. I may have guessed it, Moscow. This seems possible. You'll let us know if that was right. Meanwhile, this turn over here, g6 played by Micro Hawk, defending h7. And the Jags man goes bishop e3, paving the way for perhaps castling queenside. Also just leaving black guessing for another move as to which direction white's really going. All right, Boondock Striker is in to both Twitch and perhaps to chess. All right, Moscow. So I managed to guess the line correctly. Tell us, what line were you wondering about? Still waiting on chess. What should black do here? Our normal move is just to develop the knight, but sometimes it's good to have a plan where the bishop wants to go and so forth. So why does not black play queen b6 after queen d4 and trying to win? E d6, queen d6, queen e4, queen e6, queen d4. And it's here where black could avoid the repetition by going to b6. Yeah, you got to take the wins you get, Boondock Striker. It was only a few hours ago that I considered raising my head a few inches into the air to be a win. So, yeah. The less you win, the more you appreciate a win. I don't see anything wrong with this, Moscow. I have no idea why people don't play this, other than this, potential theory that the only people doing this thing are GMs who basically agreed in advance to draw with each other. They just don't even want to play chess. So the reason they wouldn't play the move Queen B6 is because they would rather not play chess. They want to get out of there as soon as possible. It's really the only explanation I could give you. I mean, it's a guess, but I don't see anything wrong with move Queen B6, and you've already had an engine tell you it's equal, so what am I going to tell you that an engine isn't? Shouldn't black have better practical chances? I don't know. Maybe black's practical chances are equal. Even that would be enough for me to play, right? So that's not the issue. Microhawk having a real thinkaroo about this one. So let's see. Where can this piece ever go? Bishop G4, F3, or H3. Well, at the moment, actually, you can play Bishop G4 because there's no F3. So if you just want to offload the piece, I suppose you could try to give up the piece here and trade it for the knight. I don't know how tempting that is, but... yeah, Moscow, as far as I can see, if you could start every game from that position as black, you pretty much would. Right? If you knew for sure that your opponent would play those opening moves, and you could get that position and then avoid the draw with your Queen B6 move, then it seems to me like almost any chess player would want to do that with black every game. Well, other than that, you would get bored at some point, right? But from a results standpoint, it looks pretty comfortable. So, okay, maybe Bishop G4 could be played here, but I'm not fully convinced that we want to give up the bishop pair. So the other square could go to would be E6. What are you afraid of missing, Trash? The tournament? You definitely didn't show up at the start, but you can still join it. That's how arenas work. Hit exclam fight, and you'll see the links to the two sections. Bishop E6, okay. Yeah, so that's what we were just considering here was Bishop E6. The potential issue with this is a knight trying to come to F4 quickly could still cost us the bishop pair. So let's say we castle, knight D7, knight F4. Now black's going to have to give up the bishop pair. So we'll see if white tries to go for a quick knight F4. That's the one downside to this. Alternatively, black could have gone knight D7, white castles somewhere, then deploy the knight to B6. And leave the bishop on C8, or it could go to E6 when it has a retreat against knight F4, I suppose. Or it could go to D7. Apologies, Cross. It won't be the last for today. It's exclam fight, Trash. Exclam fight. Okay, so bishop e6 was played in the game, and white quickly castled queenside. So I'm not sure that I trust that white has calculated bishop a2. Bishop a2 might be bad, but white played so quickly that I'm not sure that they double-checked bishop takes a2 before playing this move. to say nothing of queen a5. Basically, for a classical game, this castle's queenside move came a little bit too fast, I think. You didn't know for sure that black was going to go bishop e6. Have you really calculated bishop a2 and queen a5 correctly in advance while your opponent was thinking? Unlikely, right? Take a real professional to be doing that. So I think it's more likely that the Jags man played too quickly than that the Jags man had, with great discipline, calculated really hard during the opponent's time and figured out the response here. Ping pong. Excellent, Trashy. Which section are you in? Over or under 1600? I see you, under 1600. With a Canadian flag. Do you also like playing ping pong, Cho? For my own fun, I'm going to put this position on my chessboard here. It's a whole different feeling with the real pieces. Boop. Looks like I've guessed the move order correctly. Now, I love it too. That's why I asked. I totally love it. Now, I'm looking at this from White's perspective on a real board here, from this position right before castling. And I'm thinking about castling, and I can tell you my instinctive reaction is, oof, I don't really, my instincts aren't telling me that's going to hold. So I'm very worried about it. When I was looking at my computer screen, I calculated sort of castles queenside, bishop takes a2. You guys can maybe try and follow one or two moves in your heads while I move on my board here. So bishop takes a2 in the position you're seeing. b3 for white, trapping the bishop. Bishop a3 check for black. And king d2 for white. The king escapes and the bishop on a2 is trapped. That was kind of my first thought when I was looking. Excuse me. When I was looking on the 2D board earlier. But now, what I'm seeing looking at my real board is I'm considering if I castle and the opponent takes and I play b3, what if they play queen a5 there? Queen a5 with the idea of queen a3 check and then taking the b pawn. King b2 is no avail because queen a3 check pushes the king away to a1 and then bishop takes b3 wins. King d2 maybe, but it doesn't obviously prevent queen a3. Maybe then with rook a1 it'll work out. Queen a3, rook a1, bishop takes b3. Rook a3, bishop takes c2, and the rook on a3 is hanging. Ay, ay, ay. Queen a5. Oh, black's played a move in the game. Let's see what they did. They took! Oh, now we've got some controversy on our hands, haven't we, folks? White said I can castle. Black said you can't. Am I going to stream for the full 24 hours? No, sir. I never do. And especially right now, I'm just barely coming out of a couple days of being so sick that I couldn't do anything. My throat hurts from coughing. So, no. Normally, I do commentary for the first 4 hours of the tournament. 8 p.m. to midnight my time. Perhaps relevant for you to know is I'm an adult with 3 kids at home, so I can't stay up all night doing fun stuff, because I have to be on with the kids, etc. Yeah. So I've just had a couple days of lying in bed not taking care of my kids, but I'm feeling a bit better, and tomorrow I will be back to taking care of the kids. I will also do the Saturday tournament, which is to be found here under !play. That's rapid tournaments we do every Saturday. I think that Micro Hawk's going to get away with this bishop takes a2. Yeah. King d2, queen a3, knight c1. Ooh, knight c1, huh? Okay, let's think that through. Queen a5, king d2. Is anybody struggling with the calculation here? Yeah, I've been lying around taking care of my health for a couple of days, Guru, and as soon as I feel really bad tonight, I will stop the commentary early, and get a good night's rest and come back tomorrow. But as long as I feel not fine, I don't feel fine. As long as I feel, feel up for it, I'll do it a little bit. Is anyone struggling with the calculation I'm talking about here with b3, queen a5? Yeah, that's the idea, Trash. It's to do this tournament every Friday at this time. Also, Boondock Striker has a game, so we could add another game to my viewing list. Knight, knight, bishop, bishop. Nice position from Boondock. This is the game I was on before, right, that I was calculating? Oh, wow. The controversy continues. White plays b3, saying, I am trapping your piece. And queen a5 from Microhawk comes quickly because Microhawk calculated before taking on a2, folks. So queen a5 comes quickly. Boondock, Stamen was saying that bishop a3, king d2, queen a5 looked okay. But then, White has a fascinating way of winning a piece, Stamen, I think. Which is to take on a2. Very unlikely, Trashy. The Dojoers have very, very high degrees of honor. They know not to listen to the commentary while playing their games. But bishop c1 jump chord, yes. Perhaps that's what Stamen thought I was blundering. Well, when your game starts, you should stop listening, Trashy. But right now, you're just waiting for a game, right? So you should totally hang out with us until your game starts. Yeah. Oh. And the knight defends, yeah. Okay, so here's the game continuation. Queen a5. All right, enjoy your game, Trash. We'll see you after. Queen a5 and king d2 has been played. And now king d2 was played quickly, so that means that the Jags man calculated for a few minutes before playing b3, and now they feel confident that they've got that bishop trapped. So that means they've seen this knight c1 resource in advance. Oh my goodness. It's getting real. Wow. Whew. Intense. So one element that black can go after here is the bishop on e3. As you're struggling to find enough tactical juice to not lose your bishop on a2, you can see that there's this theme of f5, f4 trapping this bishop. That might be some part of the puzzle that you need. Yeah, that was a good rule, right, Samuel? Yeah. You can't continue in the tournament till you apologize to the person you stood up. That makes sense. I'm all for forgiveness and all that kind of stuff. I just think an apology is a good step. Oh, wow. Bishop takes b3 has just been played. So black says, let me get 2 pawns for my piece, and the white king no longer has pawn cover. But yeah, I am sacking / losing this piece. Okay. Okay. So we would expect that black has not quite enough compensation, right? Anyone disagree with me on like the instinct? I'm not saying that's for sure the answer, but just like your first guess when you see this. It's a nice extra bishop against 2 pawns. A knight versus 2 pawns is a little bit closer in the sense that the knight often can't beat 2 pawns in the endgame, but a bishop is really likely to win an endgame. So the first thought is that black doesn't have full compensation for the sack, and they need to drum something up against white's king still, right? They're going to have to make use of a little bit of outplaying in the middle game. But, you know, the disadvantage is probably not excessive. You know, it's not like black needs to resign or sack more things in desperation, right? They can just play this position with the white king on d2. And to that, speaking to that, it would make sense to develop these pieces and to look for a pawn break at either b4 or c5, right? Trade one more of the pawns, sheltering the white king. Those are the logical things on black's agenda. One more pawn trade and developing the knight and rook. The order we leave to more careful analysis and black to decide, but that's like the framework for how to play this position, right? We assume we're a bit worse with black, but we still have something to play for sure. If white sacks the white bishop in return, the black king is wide open. You think here jump chord, like on this square? On g6? Because as far as I can see, black's got 4 pawns in front of the king. So if you sack your piece and black recaptures, they still have 3 pawns in front of their king, which means their king is still better covered than white's king. Remember, black sacked their bishop for 2 pawns. So unless you've got, you know, some more coordination with this bishop takes g6 idea, some, you know, a pawn on h5 or a knight on f4 or something, unless you've got something that tells you you're getting a second pawn, it won't damage black's king position enough to be a viable counter sacrifice. I mean, I suppose one way white could handle this position is pushing h4, h5, just saying, I can't really get my king to a better spot, that'll develop my rook, and turn some attention to black's king. So black plays b5, that's what I expected. And potentially white could answer that with just the super aggressive h4, h5. It seems kind of funny, but I think it's really, really reasonable here. And by the way, the reason I expected b5 from black is that this is the move I would normally want to make. And honestly, I thought white could get away with just grabbing the pawn and attacking the knight, splitting these pawns, then I know that I'm completely lost in absolutely every endgame, and I don't feel great about giving that up. So b5, and then we'll develop next move. But this is part of black's plan to play these moves, so I expected b5. Rook a1 is played. I think that's no problem for black. The queen can drop back to either of these squares here comfortably. Of course, it's not a bad move for white either. The rook gets to an open file, right? Queen c7, good. That's probably the best square. You keep white's knight or bishop from coming to this square. In some cases, you could grab this pawn. You're not on the diagonal of that bishop like you would be on b6. And yeah, seems like a good spot. Let me update my real board here. Enjoying it. I can remove this thing about starting at 8 p.m. now. There we go. Okay. So the position's not easy to play from either side. Black's generated with that piece sack a really challenging situation for both players. Somehow this h4, h5 idea is still appealing to me for white. Because it's like all your pieces are developed, and what are you supposed to do about your king? In theory, you could go rook d1, king e1, king f1, king g1, then black takes on h2. You spend another move on h3 or g3, then do that same plan, and it's like 5 moves of a plan just to cover up the king. No, I think I might really go for h4, h5, honestly. Let me look at it on a real board and see what perspective that gives me. Let's say I'm white here. I'm not seeing a better idea. h4, h5, yeah. Although I assume that black's worse, it's easier to come up with things that black wants to do than that white wants to do. Like for black, I'd be happy to advance this pawn to a4. It's a passed pawn. I control it all the way up to a4 and a3 easily. We kick the queen, so it's not a lot of tempo. Right? We spend one move on a5, but the move a4 comes for free. Our rook gains scope. We don't have to worry about defending a7. They get less space. Our pawn's closer to queenie. So that's like an easy thing to do in addition to developing like knight d7, rook d8, in addition to playing for c5 or b4. So there's several things I could see trying to do as black. I could also imagine playing f5 with the idea of f4. That's weird. That's weird, because normally the person who has the advantage is going to have more options than the person who has the disadvantage. The fact that black has 4 or 5 things they want to do almost suggests to me that my instinctive evaluation might be slightly wrong. Pushing h-pawn against a fianchetto, often a good plan. Yeah. This is somewhat unusual position with the white king in the middle, right? And a piece sack already played by the other side, but I don't know, it still looks reasonable to me. And I don't even have a secondary plan. The secondary plan I considered was knight g3 to e4, just a minor regrouping of a piece. But, you know, knight d7 controlling this square, knight e4, bishop f8, it didn't really seem to do anything for white. Not clear how much better the knight is here than here. Black could still play c5 at some point if they want. They can also play f5, kick the knight, and then f4, trapping the bishop. They could also play rook d8 and look for shots against these pieces because the knight's exposed here. And finally, they could even just cut the knight off with f5 the moment it comes here, threatening f4. And what is the poor knight doing on g3? So oh, h4's been played. h4's been played by the Jags man. Wow. Oh, that's a satisfying piece coming down. h4. Ay, ay, ay. You know, when Jagman castled queenside quickly, and I assumed they hadn't properly calculated bishop a2 or queen a5, I was like, yeah, that's not a good start, Jagman. You can do a bit better than that. But h4 here, man, that is not a trivial move. That resets Jagman's performance much higher. Okay, Black's played some kind of an answer. Knight d7 developing, and h5. Man, go Jagman. Beautiful. By the way, folks, we'll just point out one quick little thing, right? Had Black prevented h5 by playing h5 themselves, White can play bishop takes g6. And then Black's just falling apart, right? The whole structure's cracking. So there wasn't really a way to prevent this move h5, so it happened. And White's ready to get their own attack here. Now maybe Black needs an aggressive move. Yeah, jump cord, you'd spotted that factor. In the position, the g6 square being barely defended. All right, so my first instinct here for Microhawk was to throw the move c5 at the opponent. Microhawk just played knight f8, a defensive move, covering the g6 square. My first thought had been, let's just play something really aggressive, you know, make some threats. Boom. We did win back the piece for Black, but at what cost? White's up 2 pawns and Black's king looks really bad. c5. Queen d5 instead. Okay. Then another move I thought of was f5. The idea is to take like this, and the bishop can't take on g6. Also, we're considering this move. Yeah, this sort of holds white's attack at bay to some extent. It looks possible. But yeah, my immediate reaction of play something desperate was seemingly not right. What Microhawk played is more in the correct direction with knight f8. Similar in spirit to like f5 or king g7 moves. Okay, so what should the Jags man do next? They've accomplished A, opening up the H file. I guess they should trade once, that much is clear. And then perhaps try to double rooks on the H file. Something like HG, rook H4. Hard to really bust black with the H file just because of that knight on f8. Maybe bishop h6 to remove the defending piece, yeah. Oh, he's come up with something. HG, knight g6. That's a huge surprise. Now this seems like really a weak square to target. But on the other hand, there's no rook h4 now, so maybe start with rook h5 or h6 and then double. Sack the white bishop and stack the rooks. Normally, jump chord, you would want to stack the rooks first, and then if you need to do a sack for the breakthrough, then you would sack. But here, when you could be bringing your rook from a1 to h5 and seeing how your opponent defends, you would normally do that before making a sack, right? We've got a suggestion of f4, f5. That's interesting, but there's maybe a risk there for W. Here's what I think might be risky then. Exchange sack. I mean, I guess I'm down a full rook now. But at least I'm making some threats. Yeah, I mean, there's another version without sacking the exchange, actually, because we've got 3 attackers on f4. Black could just take here and hope to whip something up against white's king. Obviously, I'm hanging h7. But I'm basically looking for counterplay with this move because I see that white's threats are too strong for me to handle long term, so I need to create my own threats and hope that, you know, the tactics are in my favor somehow, or the calculation is in my favor even if it shouldn't be. If you make things complicated, you can get ahead. But this is like a typical move to get an advantage, is this kind of exchange sack. Can lead to some real attacks. Hey, Mari and the Raiders, thank you so much for joining us. This is Friday Night Fights, a weekly show that occurs on Chess Dojo every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific. Thank you, Mari. We play classical chess here, split into 2 groups by rating. Players under 1600 have one tournament and over 1600 another tournament. And they also have 2 different time controls. The lower rated group plays 45 plus 30. The higher rated group plays 90 plus 30. I provide commentary most Fridays. And yeah, it's basically the deal. Anyone's welcome to play. And anybody's welcome to watch and listen. Okay, so this is live position. Knight takes g6 has been played. It's white's move. We were just looking at a suggestion of f4, which looks a little bit like it makes a two-way street. You know, like it gives black a little bit of hope, maybe. So I feel that it's more likely that white will just move the rook on h1 to prepare doubling. Well, that's a pretty solid prediction then for war. Rook h5 and maybe rook h6 are the moves that occur to me. Anything else white might want to do? To my eyes, not really. Nothing else I really want to do other than double on the h-file. White, it feels like white is thinking a bit on this move. Is it just looking for the difference between rook h5 or rook h6, or is there something else important going on in the position that's got white worrying? At my real board. I've got a real board set up of these players' game so that I can get a 3D perspective at will. Just something I'm trying for fun this week. Normally I just comment on the computer screen, but looking at the real board is fun, as is having the real pieces in my hands as they get captured. Rook h5 looks so good. Hey Jacob, the exclam play and exclam fight kind of commands only work over on Twitch, but I've tried sending you a link that might allow you to find the current dojo tournaments that we're in here, current events. All right, rook h5 is the move. Yeah, jump court. If instead the rook had gone to h6, that would have made an immediate threat of taking on g6. But from here, the rook is a little bit better placed for some other things, like stopping black from playing c5, keeping black from playing f5, and allowing the bishop to come here as needed. So here, followed by here, is going to be good. I didn't know which one was better, rook h5 or rook h6. I was thinking of both of them. So we'll see. Of course, there are differences. Sometimes there are 2 moves that look the same, and eventually you find out that there was some big difference between them. Sometimes there isn't or wasn't a big difference. Nice 6.5 minutes of thought from the Jags man on this rook h5. Excellent move. Yeah, once white doubles rooks, at this point, if it were white's move and they had time to double rooks, black would be reduced to bringing the knight back to f8, but then the bishop could take anyway. Oof. No, it would be all over for that h-pawn. So is there even a way for black to defend it better, or is it gone? Yeah, I don't see a way to stop this attack on the h-file, honestly. It's going to win the h7 pawn and perhaps even the black king, depending on how safe black is, how well they calculate. Mm-hmm. I hear you, PKR. It's hard to be sure which one was better, but yeah. It did have that benefit. It had one more benefit also, which is that if this knight moves back to h7, you could take on f6. But again, you might also just do this, threatening to take here with just all the pieces that you have. So it's not easy to see what the difference is because both moves look pretty winning so far. Basically, knight takes g6 from black is a culprit there and turning this game much easier for white, I think. For anyone new to this show, normally I'm not this tired and sick, so apologies for coughing and yawning my way through it. Okay, let me put myself in black's shoes, see if I can't come up with something. Even if it's desperate. What could I do? I guess black could play like a5, b4. Exactly, 4 war. Playing king g7 doesn't really help. Because if you defend h7 with the knight coming back to f8, there will always be that bishop check trading off the defender. So here's my thought. I'd try here, here, here. Still struggling for my counterplay. I don't think it's that easy here, jump chord, because the queen is on it. Oh, that's a reasonable try, Jacob. So that was rook h5, king g7, rook over, rook h8. Yeah, I mean, I guess you get your rook trapped like this, but you've defended the h-file attack, and white still has to come up with a breakthrough or a threat. I guess to break through from white's perspective, now you want to try and checkmate on this file with f4, f5 if you could. Yeah, for now it is ugly but alive. I'll bring this rook to the g file first and control the f4 square. I don't want to get into another thing with like f4, knight f4 that I haven't calculated and it'd be messy. I mean, I know with the rook trapped on h8, it's even likelier to be good for black, for white, but I'm just going to try this first anyway. Covering f4, preparing f4, f5, and rook g4. If black takes, then they just can't defend their king, period, right? It's just instantaneous. So we can safely bring the rook there, and then after black plays some move, come here. You threaten to take twice, right? Because the queen, the pin that 4war keeps telling us about. So this would be very tough for black. Yeah. Rook h5, knight f4 was the move. So first blush, that leaves h7 hanging. Maybe to the bishop, maybe to the rook. The knight's attacking both pieces. So maybe you need to trade it and then take on h7. White traded and is still thinking here. Is it good for white to play this move to get space for their queen? Hard to do jump chord because of the king, you know, and black playing rook to d8 opposite all those pieces. It would be an unusual situation where white would want to play d5 here. I think bringing the rook is generally simpler. Taking here, increasing the pressure is good for now. So knight f4, bishop f4. Oh, I haven't used my pieces in a couple weeks. 2 weeks probably. Feels good. So what was I thinking here? Just rook takes h7. Yeah, because one of the things I like about rook takes h7 is to start tying the black queen down to the f7 square. So in this position, depending what you do, your opponent might trade, and go queen g3. And she hits what looks a little bit like a soft underbelly, right? At g2 and e3. Here, I guess I'll make the point by marking time with this move, right? Takes, boom. right? She sort of starts to get in. So what I like about rook h7 is that black can no longer go on that sort of an adventure because rook h7 was keeping the queen occupied defending f7. Rook h1 was played in the game, not the rook h7 that I would play, so that makes me wonder, could black now come for this? I mean, to some extent, there's still rook h7, leaving stuff hanging. But arguing that what black's doing is more important. So like here, 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 here. Yeah, it seems like white's still winning with the extra bishop, even if they gave that e3 pawn. h6 maybe another resource from Jacob, because to trade the bishop we'd have to bring the queen in. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fine move, h6. I think white still has plenty of room to bring up the rook, and fight this bishop for the h6 square. But perhaps more importantly, this queen should be improved, which suggests maybe queen d1 switching towards this side of the board. Takes, queen here, queen here. And attacks here, and everything's covered, and the extra bishop will shine. With black's bad pawn structure on the king side, it's a very easy endgame now. Okay, this is the live position. Yeah, rook ah1 from white. Black looking for a defensive move here. Could be bishop e3 check followed by queen g3. It could be h6. It could be just black king screams, ah, and starts running out like this without too much of a plan other than get away. Yeah. Nothing holds. Nothing holds. White has probably been winning since black took on g6 with the knight and messed up the kingside pawn structure. Before that, it still felt complicated, and now it feels pretty clean to me, or pretty clear. Easy to find moves for white, and not really expecting that my valuation is going to be wrong. Then queen g3. Yeah, Dabo. That's one of the main options we were thinking about. And here what we came up with, rook h7, going after this checkmate and just letting black go in for what they want, and here was a sample variation, you know. And then 10 check, the bishop drops back here. This looked pretty good for white. Maybe black can just keep going. How should white continue from here? You could play bishop g6, but black has queen e7. You could try and bring the queen around with like queen here, hoping to eventually bring her somewhere to the king side. Maybe g4, queen h2. And black just has to, you know, find some weakness in white's king before they lose. No choice. Okay, let's see if they've moved. No, rook h1. And black is in thought. The players are using their time very well here, very wisely. The Jags man and Micro Hawk. Not too fast, not too slow, I would say for now. There was one move early on that was quick, but other than that, everything's going fine. Whew. Queen c2 to c1 to h6. Yeah, Foos, that would be the kind of thing white would be looking for there. All right, let's see what black did. Gave the trade. I think we're going to see queen g3. From a practical perspective, that can spook your opponent and give them some hard decision to make. So from a practical perspective, yeah, queen g3 would be a very logical choice. Which guy, Dabo? We've got Microhawk 22 and the Jags man on this game. Dabo, you're saying in this exact position you could just sack rook e3 in a blitz game and see if it connects? I haven't seen any new Magnus at Moscow. Okay, so Dabo is suggesting something like this to try and terrify the opponent. Maybe queen f4, king c2. Take out. No, I don't know the take out. I have to have a look at some point. King c2, queen check. King can come back to one of these squares. Looks like white's pretty safe with their extra rook and bishop at that point. Queen g3. That's what we expected. Yeah. So, I mean, white can't easily cover e3 and g2, so they're going to have to be ready to give something here. Uh-huh. Yeah, I hear you, Dabo. You like to make your opponent find one or two really difficult moves if you're losing anyway. That's what I tend to do, but I don't have a very high percentage of saving bad positions. So I have to recalibrate personally towards a little more of like accepting losing positions and just playing a few more moves and seeing if your opponent just messes up sort of on their own, so to speak, just by making the game longer. Versus making it really short but critical for a move or two. Yeah, Lux, I am sick. I am fighting my fatigue here a little bit. Which rook would you put on h3, Jump Cord? I like that you keep black's rook out of the game by playing rook h3 here. Queen d1 is reasonable too. Okay. So Jump Cord suggests going like this and then here. I don't know yet, Doses Dose, but the Jags man did find some really impressive moves, most of all h4, h5, as the solution went up a piece instead of a bunch of meaningless consolidating moves. Looks relatively safe. And honestly, I mean, bishop e2 is maybe even more solid, right? You just hold everything and then bring the queen here. Or through here. This looks really solid, bishop e2. Oh, that's what Jump Cord had said to do. Sorry, Cord. Okay, so queen g3 is the live position. Here, white's thinking. So rook h3 looks fine. I'd also had a weird idea here where you go check, king here, and then bishop e4. The point being that if they take, you can go here, here, and win a rook. But these moves are going to be pretty tricky to get out of this way. Yeah. I sort of had that feeling too, Foos. Like that was perhaps too messy. Interesting, Moscow. There's nothing 100% clean. The queen d1 line is perhaps one of the cleaner ones in that your king's seemingly in less danger after queen d1. Like she gets on the right side of your king in this line, or even in this line, right, where she's ready to do this sort of stuff. So I know that was somebody's suggestion. It's a pretty plausible move here, queen d1. Stamen says there's no perpetual, so just go rook h7. Yeah, that was the first one. First line we calculated. Well, Moscow, I mean, Magnus is part of chess.com now, right? So if he's made another new app, I imagine there's a good chance it would be a part of chess.com. Goes for rook h7 after lengthy consideration. All right. Not backing down at all. Jagsman, either having no fear or showing no fear, right? Maybe you've got the fear and you do what you have to do anyway. Trusting the king to try and get itself out of this situation. One day old, wow. Check to the miserable king. Now with this move order, can white not play maybe bishop e2? Bishop e2. I see no real follow-up checks after bishop e2. King c1. The king journeys. I guess I don't see a check here either. And this leaves the bishop on an aggressive square participating in white's checkmate threats. Yeah, for example, this way, if the rook comes here, your bishop's still covering g6. And so you have a checkmate here, which you wouldn't have if you'd played bishop e2. I've never heard them say outcalculate your fear, but that is a good thing to say, for sure. Queen h1. Oh, wow. Well, that looks like desperation, and the game will be white's. I like that white doesn't play a move in 1 second. You know, you get surprised by something like queen h1. You take a beat. You make sure you know what's going on. Breathe. Play a good move, etc. Yeah, queen f7 was the threat. And on top of it, even if black defended f7 here, there was a high likelihood that white would have sort of rook h8, rook h7 checkmate as well. Yeah. Oh my goodness. A huge raid. Everyone came to see how sick I am. Ouch. But in any case, we're very thankful for you to visit us. I'm sick, David. And this is a weekly show we do called Friday Night Fights. Whew. Halfway through there, I was afraid I got the name of the show wrong. Friday Night Fights. And it's classical chess. Viewers play each other in classical matches. I watch along and commentate. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jules. And thank you, Hipside, and everybody else for joining. So we're just getting to the end of this game here between Micro Hawk and the Jagsman. In this position here, White bravely went for Rook H7 with their own checkmating attack, leaving open Queen G2 and Queen E3. A little bit of good calculation. The king escapes, and here Micro Hawk decided they couldn't really defend this checkmate because, for example, if they do, there's still this checkmate. So they've just sacked the queen, and I think that's about the end of the game. For some people, indeed, it may be Saturday morning. In fact, yeah, for a lot of people, it's Saturday morning when we start Friday Night Fights. Squeak? Okay. Squeak. Don't know who or what that is, but thank you, Squeak. These tournaments are open to anyone, so if you want to play, you can play. We have a little handy Twitch command here, !fight. Squeak is a bird. How sweet. There are links so you could play in the tournament if you want to. Now, if you weren't planning on it, you know, a game of classical chess is a little bit of a commitment. It's not the easiest thing to roll into. We also have a tournament Saturday morning for me, which will be Saturday evening for some people, which are these rapid tournaments tomorrow. So we like to do a lot of different things on our channel. One of them is watch and analyze viewer games. All right, Bishop H7 check. For fun today, I'm following along on their game using a real board for myself here. And yeah, I'm enjoying that, even though I don't have it set up with an extra webcam for people to see it. I still am enjoying the feeling of the pieces in my hands. And occasionally I look over at the 3D board and I see some variation that I didn't see on the 2D board. So it's nice. All right, King G7. The king is still weak, so White just needs to get the queen into position to deliver a blow. You know, queen here to here or something. Get that attack rolling again. All right, Hipside's message. I'll post it for them. Sorry, Hipside, I can't control Mubot, so. Sad Rabbit, I would say under 1,000. 950, I believe, is slightly under 1,000, so the right section for you would be under 1,000. It's based on whatever your chess.com rapid rating is, right? That looks fun. We just analyze people's games, and you've got birds dancing? That's crazy. Yeah?
Did you walk the dog?
Not tonight. I did feed her dinner.
So I have to walk her?
Or I can do so in about 5 minutes.
You can do it?
Mm-hmm.
Great, I'm not going to do it. Bye.
Okay. Bye. King G7. Bishop F5. Oh, that's nice. Looking to bring a rook back to H7 now, huh? Ooh, yeah. Good move, Jags, man. Rook h8 is the defensive try. I don't think that's any kind of problem for white. I think you can trade it and bring your queen into f7. And that's all good from white's perspective. Fair enough, Sad Rabbit. Yeah. Hopefully you mostly get paired with, 8 or 900s. But yeah, you might get some lower rated players. If we had thousands of people, we'd have to split our tournaments into more smaller groups. Rook g1. Okay. The battle goes on a little bit longer. I think this was pretty conclusive. I'll just show on the board what I was thinking of, folks. You come here, and you're threatening checkmate 1 and checkmate 2, thanks to the bishop. And yeah, just black doesn't really have any pieces with which to stop 2 different checkmates, right? So that could be the end there. Well, it's different than looking at the ceiling crystal mirror in the sense that it's looking at a chessboard, which is what most chess players do. So it doesn't seem as fancy. I'm not as fancy. All right, queen b4 check. I'm all for some violence here. Let's keep the checks flowing and try to checkmate. King e8, that's correct. Rook e7 blocking would have been worse because white can pile up on the pinned piece that can't escape the multiple attacks. So the king moves. Queen comes in looking for checkmating ideas here at d7, sacking this pawn, but that's fine. The attack should and would justify that sacrifice. So it's a good move from the Jags man. I approve fully. Oh, love it. Chess pieces are so nice. Queen d6. Yeah, so mating patterns. Well, okay, it's not a mating pattern, but one threat is queen b8 and then queen takes h8. You go queen check, king here, queen check, but then this rook can come back and block. So that's not quite mate. Then you could take on f6 and keep going. But the move that is an immediate forced mate is bishop d7. So I'll play a5 to show the point. Check. Queen's still covering this, so you have to come this way. And now you can go either way with the bishop and checkmate from there. So like here, you go boom, 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 and get assisted from the bishop there. Right? Or if you cover this way and push the king this way, then your bishop will assist you on that square. So, queen d6. And yeah, powerful threat of bishop d7 with mate, as well as some other threats. The Jags man looking very good today, all around. I think the key moment in this entire game, folks, honestly, was the decision to go h4. And I really couldn't think of a better plan. But it seemed so remarkable and unusual. Here we have this position. Black has sacked a piece for 2 pawns. The white king's in bad position, but black needs a little time to go knight d7, a5, and start playing c5 and b4. So there's some good plans for black, but they're going to take a little while. And in this position, instead of trying to protect the king or coordinate the rook in the normal sense in the center, right? The Jags man came up with this plan h4 and h5. And I think it was really fantastic. It put enough pressure on Black's king that Microhawk couldn't even get any aggressive moves going for a long time here. So, and from there, you see White's play kind of flowed of itself on the h-file. Yeah, good stuff. Jags, man. That h4 is super not obvious. Rook e7 played, covering the checkmate. Nice. However, it allows a new checkmate. Who will be the first person in chat to scream out this checkmate? You'll win some amazing something in a giveaway. Dabo! Edges out viral stigma by leaving out the queen. Yeah. Not clear. We might need a judge to rule on who was really faster there. All right, very good. See if Jags man finds it. Or something else. There's other good moves here too. Is advancing the h-pawn always good against fianchettos? Very often, but not always. There are very few things in chess that are always good hip side. Pretty much checkmate is the only thing in chess that doesn't have a downside. In the sense that almost everything you do has like a weakness as well as a strength, so there will be situations where the weakness will outweigh the strength and you won't want to do it. Like, even developing pieces can sometimes be a mistake. Like, developing your bishop could be a mistake because it lets your opponent play bishop takes g2 and win your rook, right? All right, Jagsman found it. Delivers the checkmate. Nice. Does that make sense, hip side? Like, you know, like, normally you'd think it's great to put your knight in the center, but your knight's undefended here, right? There's always going to be like a plus or a minus to almost any chess thing. And so, for example, rushing your h-pawn at a fianchetto, well, one question is, which of you is castled on the king side, right, hip side? Let's say that in the position from this game where white went for h4, h5, right here. Imagine that white's king were on the king side and black's king were on the queen side. Would h4, h5 be good then? That might be an exception, right? If it worked, it would probably be an exception to the idea that normally h4, h5 is less good when your own king is there and the opponent's king isn't, right? And, you know, the principles and ideas that strong players and grandmasters carry around are always much more specific and refined than the ideas that less advanced and less advanced and less advanced players carry around, right? So, somebody who's just started learning about the chess community might say something like, you know, opening, like, attacking the king is good. And someone else might say, well, if there's a pawn on g6, h4, h5 is good. And someone else might say, well, if your rook is still on h1 and your king's not on the king side, h4, h5 could be good against g6, except in situations where when you play h4, your opponent can easily play h5 and blockade you. Unless after h4, h5, you have a g4 pawn sack. After hg, you play h5 anyway, and you get a strong attack while sacking pawns. Right? So the knowledge gets more and more specific. And that applies to middle game ideas, opening ideas, end game ideas, etc. In this case, by the way, you know, since we mentioned it, h4, black didn't have h5 because of bishop takes g6. That was the detail. In other cases, you might need something like g4 takes h5. And that's obviously a technique that's not going to work every time. It's not trivial. It's a sacrifice, right? Okay. With that said, everybody, I'm going to excuse myself a little bit early for tonight, being super sick and tired and achy as I am. My body can't sit up much longer. Oh, it hurts so bad. So I'm going to say good night. I'll be back tomorrow morning for the rapid tournaments. For those of you who want to play, you can still play even without commentary. Here are the links to the 2 tournaments which are open. We have somebody asking for more opponents in the 1600 plus group just a moment ago. No Vest for the Dreary asking for somebody to join. So, yeah, pop in and play a game if you would like, although obviously a classical game is a bit of a commitment. Much less of a commitment is tomorrow morning's rapid tournaments. They are in 4 different rating groups, and it's just a 15-minute game. Easy to pop in and play one or more of those. Yeah, and I wish you all the best.